For the 2025 season, the NFHS has identified 5 areas of the game that need to be addressed and given special attention. This means coaches will be on alert for these situations in their games, and umpires need to be ready to identify and enforce these rules. So in this video, we'll break down the 5 points of emphasis along with the rules that accompany those areas. We'll then break down this week's case plays to help you better understand how these situations may appear in your games. Of course, if you want to try taking the case plays before we review the answers, you can find them linked in the video description. Hi everyone, I'm Patrick Farber with Umpire Classroom, where we help umpires develop their knowledge and skills. If you're new here, be sure to subscribe to the channel, and you can find more umpire training videos and courses at umpireclassroom.com. For 2025, there are 5 points of emphasis for baseball. They are use of authenticating marked program balls, pitching positions, bench decorum, use of props, and improper use of communication equipment. So let's work through each one to better explain how they apply to our games. First, let's look at the rules around baseballs and pregame responsibilities. Rule 1-3-1 defines the standards for a baseball in NFHS games. Now, if you're familiar with the official baseball rules used in professional baseball, you'll know that Rule 3.01 gives specific details about the ball. This includes its weight, circumference, color, the materials it's made out of. It even includes the word avoirdupois, which I'm going to guess is not in most of your vocabularies. Now, all of that is a lot for you to have to break down and understand. Can you imagine a coach complaining about any of those aspects in your game and the headache it would cause? It would be a lot, so the NFHS has made your job a lot easier by making the only requirement for a baseball be that it must have the authenticating mark that they give to manufacturers who apply for the mark. Manufacturers are only given the ability to use the mark when they can prove that they produce baseballs that fall into the safety metrics implemented by the NFHS. This mark will note that the balls meet SEI NOTC standards and that the ball is good for play. And it's critical that you ensure this mark is on your game balls because it is the only rule defining an NFHS baseball. If you look at the NFHS rule, it makes no mention of the size, weight, material, or color of the ball. The full liability for the safety of our players when it comes to baseballs lies between the manufacturers and NOTC, which stands for the National Operating Committee on Standards for Athletic Equipment. For your protection and the protection of the schools and players we work with, you must ensure this requirement is enforced in your games. The second point of emphasis is pitching positions. This was a recent rule change made to clarify and simplify determining if a pitcher is in the windup or set positions. Even with the simplification, it's frustrating and disappointing to see just how many umpires do not understand, or even worse, don't have the self-confidence to enforce this rule. The NFHS rules are very clear. The determining factor is the pitcher's pivot foot. If the pivot foot is parallel to the rubber, he is in the set position. Anything other than parallel is in the windup. There is no declaring, there is no hybrid, there is no exception because he does it every time. None of that. You look at his pivot foot and determine based on that. If he starts with his pivot foot parallel, but then makes a step with his free foot before another step striding to deliver the pitch, that is illegal. With no runners on, it's an illegal pitch and a ball. With runners on base, it's a balk. My advice to you on this, and what will make you show up as a credible umpire, is to focus between innings when a pitcher is warming up to see if he violates this rule. To get this right, and to get it right on the first time it occurs, we need to double down on focus, especially before an inning starts. The next 2 points of emphasis go hand in hand. They are bench decorum and use of props. Notably, the bench decorum emphasis from the NFHS is that coaches set the tone at athletic contests with their display of sportsmanship and respect. If these individuals act in a sportsmanlike manner, manage the students in their dugout bench area, their behavior sets a positive tone for players, spectators, and others. What I take away as the most notable point here is that we need to push coaches to have more control of their dugouts and players. It's not individual players that we need to go looking for. Instead, we need to be prepared and willing to hold coaches accountable. One of the best ways to do that is with dugout restrictions. Remember, by rule, we cannot restrict players to the dugout for sportsmanship violations. However, we can restrict coaches for sportsmanship violations by them or their team. So if you think things are getting obnoxious, go ahead and restrict the coach. I think pretty quickly this will encourage more coaches to take responsibility and control of their players. But the only way this can happen is by you standing up when the time comes. Now, this leads into the point of emphasis on use of props. The NFHS, under no circumstances, allows for players to bring props onto the field. This includes buckets, crowns, capes, anything that isn't equipment used in normal gameplay. This is a poor showing of sportsmanship and violates the spirit of education-based athletics. And the NFHS helps by blanket laying out that any props brought onto the field are a violation regardless of how they are used. I'll give you an example from a JV game I worked. A player hits a home run, and while he rounds the bases, his teammates come to meet him at home. All of that is legal. But one player brings out a bucket. As the umpire, your first thought is probably going to be, I hope he doesn't do anything dumb with that. But guess what? He already did by bringing it out. That in itself is a violation, and thus it needs to be addressed. So when the batter comes around and touches home, then it's time to enforce the rule. There is no out, and remember, we can't restrict a player to the dugout for sportsmanship issues. Instead, the way to enforce this is to speak with the head coach directly. Call time, calmly go talk to him face to face, tell him his team brought a prop onto the field for the home run celebration. Explain that props on the field are a violation of the rules and points of emphasis, and that because of this, he is now restricted to the dugout. He won't have an argument. You will simply tell him that's the rule and that's what I must do. Yes, it may seem a little over the top, but we have to stop these little violations to prevent them from snowballing into more egregious situations. Finally, the last point of emphasis focuses on last year's major rule change, allowing the use of electronic communication devices. Now, this sounds like it could end up getting complicated very quickly, but really it's not that bad at the NFHS level. The keys are that communication can only be one way, it can only go from the dugout, it can only go to the catcher, and any device is legal so long as it does not create unnecessary risk of injury. With that said, please do not be over-restrictive on the injury aspect. The NFHS does not want to punish teams that can't afford certain technologies for communication. So if a team has a ragtag way of doing it, try to let it be reasonable. The coach has already taken responsibility for his players being legally and properly equipped, which includes being equipped safely. So don't over-focus on the aspect of a catcher's equipment. And lastly, don't let them confuse or use communication equipment with what is seen at the collegiate and professional levels. This communication can only go from the dugout to the catcher. It cannot go from the catcher in any circumstance, and it cannot go from the dugout to any player other than the catcher. So now that we've reviewed the 5 points of emphasis, let's review this week's case plays, which are available in the video description. Case play number 1. How many baseballs are required to start the game? The correct answer here is 3. By rule, you're required to be given 3 baseballs to start a game. That said, I personally always try to start with 6, 3 in my right ball bag and 3 in the left. Case play number 2. Is a team allowed to rub up baseballs before they are used in gameplay? The correct answer here is yes. A team is allowed to rub up baseballs before they're used in a game. Case play number 3. R1. After a foul ball, the pitcher receives a brand new baseball from the umpire. Before the ball is put in play, the pitcher reaches down, picks up dirt on the mound, and rubs it on the baseball. Is this A, this is legal? B, this is illegal, the pitcher is ejected? C, this is illegal, a ball is added to the count? D, this is illegal, a balk awards R1 second base? E, this is illegal, the umpire shall replace the baseball and no other penalty is enforced. The correct answer here is E. A pitcher is not allowed to rub any substance onto the baseball while on the field. That said, the only penalty is that the ball is taken out of play and there is no balk or ejection or anything of that nature. Case play number 4. According to the NFHS rules, what is the legal circumference of a baseball? A, 6 to 6.5 inches. B, 8 to 8.5 inches. C, 9 to 9.5 inches. D, the rule does not specify a specific size. The correct answer here is D. the NFHS rules do not give any specifics to the size or weight of the baseball. Instead, the only rule that they give to the umpires is that the ball must have the NFHS authenticating mark. Case play number 5. A right-handed pitcher engages the pitching plate with his pivot foot parallel to the pitcher's plate. His shoulders are squared to the plate, and his free foot is breaking the plane of the front edge of the pitcher's plate. Is this pitcher in the set, wind-up, or hybrid stance? The correct answer here is that this pitcher is in the set position. The only thing that determines which one he is in is his pivot foot. Since it's parallel to the rubber, he is in the set. Case play number 6. A right-handed pitcher with no runners on base engages the pitching plate with his pivot foot parallel to the pitcher's plate. His shoulders are squared to the plate, and his free foot is breaking the plane of the front edge of the pitcher's plate. He picks up and lowers his free foot twice in his delivery. Is this A, this is legal, B, this is illegal and we will restart from scratch, C, this is an illegal pitch and a ball will be added to the count? The correct answer here is C. This is an illegal pitch and a ball will be added to the count. Case play number 7. A right-handed pitcher with a runner on third base engages the pitching plate with his pivot foot parallel to the pitcher's plate. His shoulders are squared to the plate, and his free foot is breaking the plane of the front edge of the pitcher's plate. He picks up and lowers his free foot twice in his delivery. Is this A, this is legal, B, this is illegal and we will restart from scratch, C, this is an illegal pitch and a ball will be added to the count, or D, this is an illegal pitch and will be enforced as a balk? The correct answer here is D. This is an illegal pitch and will be enforced as a balk, scoring the runner from third. Now, this could have been handled with preventative officiating by enforcing this on the first pitch that he threw from the windup. If he's already in the windup with a runner on third base, he's already been pitching from it before, and we probably could have enforced it then or even warned him in the warm-ups and avoided a balk where we score the runner. That's why it's so important that we pay attention to the pitcher warming up before the inning starts, because that'll let us know, hey, he's going to do this illegal pitch. I need to be ready to enforce it from the start. Case play number 8. The hybrid stance is an alternative to the windup and set and is considered the same as the windup. True or false? The correct answer here is false. There is no hybrid stance. There is no declaring what you're in. You're either in the set or the windup, and it's entirely based on the positioning of your pivot foot. Case play number 9. Can a player be restricted to the dugout for unsportsmanlike behavior? The correct answer here is no. Players cannot be restricted to the dugout for sportsmanship issues. The only reason a player can be restricted to the dugout is if they're used as an illegal substitute, and the reason the NFHS has that as a restriction is that they don't want us ejecting players for mistakes that are made by the coaches. So for you as an umpire, the best way to handle sportsmanship issues, especially out of players that aren't in the game and are already in the dugout, we don't restrict someone already in the dugout. Instead, we get on the coach to either handle the dugout or we're going to restrict the coach to the dugout. Case play number 10. With the bases loaded, B4 hits a grand slam. His teammates come out of the dugout and celebrate with him around home plate, but after he touches the plate. Is this legal or illegal? The correct answer here is that this is legal. Because it's a home run that left the playing surface, it's a dead ball. During a dead ball, we don't have the same restrictions that keep the players in the dugout. So as long as they're coming out in a respectful manner, it's okay for them to celebrate the home run. Case play number 11. With the bases loaded, B4 hits a grand slam. His teammates come out of the dugout and celebrate with him around home plate, but after he touches the plate. One of the bench players brought out a crown to place on the batter's head after he crosses home. Is this legal or illegal? The correct answer here is that this is illegal. A crown is not proper equipment for any baseball player, and the result is going to be that the head coach should be restricted to the dugout. Case play number 12. With the bases loaded, B4 hits a grand slam. His teammates come out of the dugout and celebrate with him around home plate, but after he touches the plate. One of the bench players brings out a bucket, but doesn't do anything unsportsmanlike with it. Is this A, this is legal, B, this is illegal, the player's restricted to the dugout, C, this is illegal, the player's ejected, D, this is illegal, the player and head coach are ejected. E, this is illegal, the head coach is restricted to the dugout. F, this is illegal, the head coach is ejected. The correct answer here is E. This is illegal and the head coach is restricted to the dugout. So long as this is the first violation, that's the best penalty that we can use, is simply restricting the head coach to the dugout. Remember that it doesn't matter how the equipment is used when it's brought onto the field. Instead, any use of a prop, any bringing of it onto the field is going to be a penalty. And the best penalty here is you restrict the head coach to the dugout. Case play number 13. Which of the following uses of one-way electronic communications equipment are legal? Coach to catcher, coach to pitcher, coach to runner, catcher to pitcher. The only correct answer here is communication equipment going from the coach to the catcher. There's no other use of electronic communication devices that is legal in NFHS baseball. So there you have it, our review of the 2025 NFHS Baseball Points of Emphasis. If you found this video helpful, be sure to subscribe to our channel and check out our website at umpireclassroom.com. As always, thank you so much for watching, and I look forward to seeing you on the field. Averdupius, 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 averdupois, 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 averdupois,